Welcome to the final episode of the Pixel Platformer. This is episode 13, I think it is. I've only tweaked a couple things on our final prototype here, but I'm also going to be segueing into kind of sharing so many more enhancements we can make to the game. So just to show a few things that I've done, let's run this game. I'm in my main menu here. And I'll point out a couple changes from the last video that I've done, and I'll demonstrate this as well. So I've done a really simple animation on my title, changing a little bit of the color gradients and of the text size. And now I can go ahead and click on the Start Game. And here we are in my game mode, and we can see I have, let's just move my mouse, we have my timer going. That's keeping track of kind of my hypothetical score here on how fast I can beat my level. And once I get to the top here, I did add one more thing. You'll notice this UI fades in with a really simple animation, so it's not such a hard cut in. And this, of course, works. Now, a couple things we got to fix. I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you how to not allow me to move anymore, because when we've beat the level, we have a score of 19 seconds, 0.84. We shouldn't be able to move anymore, and I should just be navigating this menu screen. So I'll go back to the main menu here, and we can see everything's working great. So I'm going to show you a few things in this video and talk about all the extra enhancements we can be doing. All right, so first thing first, how to do an animation on UI is really easy. You can actually animate anything without doing any code whatsoever, especially if it's an animation you want to play when something is activated or when a scene starts or something that's looping like my text here. So I'll show you one that I find really easy, and I take this starry background, and we'll see here. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the scale here. I'm going to have it zoomed way out, like right about there, I think. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my animation window, or you can press Control-6 to bring this up. I'm going to go create. And so I'm going to be creating an animation on this object, my background object. So let's just call this background expand. Sure, let's call it background expand. Save it there. And now all I got to do is click the record button. But what I like to do is I like to move ahead here on my timeline. Doesn't really matter where. I'll hit record. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this back down all the way till it's just about the size of the screen. And that created two keyframes. It created a keyframe of how it started and now how I've changed it. And I'll exit out of recording now, because that's all I need to have happen for this one. It's really simple. I'll press play, and we can see it zooming. Now that's going really fast, so I'm going to change, make sure it's a little easier to look at it seconds. You can look at it as frames if you want, but I'll keep it on seconds. I'm going to use my scroller to zoom way out, and let's spread this out for quite a ways. Actually, I want this to move really slow, so I'm going to have this transition happen over the course of about 20 seconds. And now if I sample this, we can see it's just a slight little nice movement on my pixel art stars, and this way they should be able to select this within the first 20 seconds. Now when this finishes, it will loop back, and that's an easy thing to fix. We're going to turn off looping, but just to show you what happens when it loops back, which will look kind of weird, it'll flash back to being out, and I don't want it to do that. So let's just go to where I saved it there. It's in my animations here. I got lots of them, but here is my background right here. And I'm just going to click off the loop. And now it'll work great. It's ready to go. That animation will start automatically. No need to go into the animator controller or anything like that to modify this. It will work just fine when we load the scene. So that's how I got my menu going. Let's save that. And let's open up my other scene here, my final scene. I have all these different episode scenes. Let's go to episode 13. And so what I wanted to show is I did a very similar thing on my win level trigger. So I have a UI here, and this is turned off. It gets turned on. That was shown in the last video, but that's where I added this animation. So if I turn it on right now, We'll see it on my screen, and this was the animation here where I was modifying how just transparency was all I was changing with the panel and the texts and the buttons. So it's just showing how this fades in, and of course it does not loop either. So I did that one as well, and we're going to do two more little quick enhancements just to show you a bit of versatility. First, let's show you something that I've done with Cinemachine, which I think is pretty cool. So Cinemachine here, this was the original virtual camera. It's set to a priority of 10. Okay, so my main camera, which has my brain, will utilize which vertical camera has the highest priority. I duplicated this camera but changed the priority. I changed it to 5. It just needs to be lower than 10, so any number less is just fine. Now this camera won't be used, but I can click solo to see what it does, and all I did was I allowed it to zoom in on my player. And what's nice is that this will interpolate. In other words, it will transition or blend between these cameras smoothly. It won't be choppy like that. So I'll show you how to do this, and it's a really simple addition that I add to my code. I actually am adding two things to my code on my win level trigger. Okay, so let's open up that script and see what we're talking about. So I've already commented them out just to show you what they are for speed purposes here. I'll take this out. So first we need a public reference to the Cinemachine virtual camera, and I'm calling this VCAM2. And then down here, when I hit this collision, when I win my level, all I need to do is change VCAM2's priority to 15. Again, that'll be greater than 10, and it'll fade to that camera. I'll talk about this other comment here in a second. So let's save that, go back into Unity. Not my screen recorder, and Unity will load back up here, and I'm going to cheat a little bit just for time's sake here. I'm going to take my player, and this is a great way to test the end of your level. Don't complete your level over and over and over again. Let's just move my player right to almost the end of my level, and we can test this out. So now that I've done that, I just need to check if I've made the reference here, which I haven't. So VCAM2, I'm just going to drag and drop that on here. And let's test that out. I'll press play, and you'll notice it will switch to camera 2, but it'll interpolate quite nicely. It'll blend them together so it's not too choppy. So I zooms in a little bit, which adds a nice little effect. You can do this with as many cameras as you want with different triggers. This is often used for dialog boxes and whatnot for UI. And so really cool effect that you can do to switch in between cameras. The other thing that I was going to do, which we talked about, is that when I finish this level, I shouldn't be able to move my character anymore. Lots of ways to do that. I could have set up a whole bool in my let's open it up here. In my player movement, I could take all this movement code, okay, and turn that into a method called movement, and I could create a simple if statement that checks game active. Is game active? So if game is active, then I would be allowed to move if it was true. If game's not active or movement's not active, then it wouldn't allow me to run any of this big block of code here. So that's one way to do it. But I thought, hey, let's just use something we've done already in our, where is it here? Our win level script. So when we hit our collision with our trigger here, we have the win level particle system playing. The game manager goes to win level, which is controlling my timer that runs that method, and my camera I just showed you how to do. So the only other thing we're going to do is we're going to get a public reference to our player. So I'll do that in the inspector. And then here we're taking the player, and just like before, we are freezing the position. And I just chose to position X. So if you want to still jump, you could, but I don't want the player to be able to move left or right. So this will work. Let's save it and create that reference in Unity to my player on my win level trigger script. So let the scripts update here. And perfect. Here, let's check it out. So there's my player. I'm just going to drag and drop that on there for reference. Let's test this out and make sure that once I hit my trigger, I cannot move my player anymore. I should be able to jump still if I did that correctly. So now I can't move. I'm trying. I can flip, which is kind of cool. I can jump, but I can't move. Okay, and that concludes everything I want to show in my prototype. Okay, so I got a working game, getting to the top, going for a score. I've completed it. I can quit or I can go back to the main menu. All right, so last thing I want to show you is something I've created that I will share with everybody is all these enhancements. So this is very much a prototype. First of all, there is no music or sound yet. So what I've set up here is a nice Google Sheet that separates a lot of great tutorials where I've organized them by topic, what the enhancement is in a little more detail, and the difficulty of that enhancement. So you can see adding music and sound. Here's a great link to this YouTube tutorial, which is very straightforward and simple, which works great for our level. For more complex games with audio managers and a lot of different controls going on with audio and lots of different sources that can give audio, like enemies and whatnot, these more advanced videos may be what you want. As you scroll down, you can see, do I want to make some cool scene transitions like fade in and out? Very simple to add. Oh, make sure I add this one. This is from another transition. It's not very hard to do these at all. They're just doing usually UI simple animations. Then we have also a ton of enemy things to add as enhancements. Now, these can get pretty advanced, especially some of these that are more advanced enemy AI, but actually really cool one is this shooting turret tutorial. If you want something that's shooting at you that can make you explode just like the spikes can, this is a great one to add. If you want to have some level of health so you're allowed to get hit a few times, then you could do a health bar and start to control your health. But enemies and AI will get a little bit more advanced. Mechanics, we're already familiar with most of these I've talked about before, but if you want to add a shooting or any type of 2D shooting with mouse, this is a top-down version, which is at a level 3, but it does show you another way to do your shoot, to be able to instantiate a game object, which would be your bullet, to shoot with your mouse. So again, something you might incorporate once you have enemies. Or two-player, which I have down here. Maybe you're co-op, maybe you're battling each other to get to the top of the level. You could have it with a split screen if you're doing a battle, but if you're co-op, you'll probably run it on the same screen. Now, this is just local multiplayer. Level mechanics, we got lots with portals and teleporters, jump through platforms, falling and moving platforms. These are ones with a transform, one with a rigid body. This is a more advanced one, but gives you more versatility. Jump pads, 2D ladders, collectible items if you want that to be part of your scoring system. Artwork, there is millions of these videos, but I wanted to focus on some key ones that were really great for 2D. Note that if you are going to add any lighting, okay, or post-processing, you will be adding URP, the Universal Render Pipeline, to your game, which isn't hard to do, but it could limit you in some ways if you want to build this to WebGL. Most of them work just fine, but some of the more advanced post-processing, I know, and more advanced lighting can be pretty heavy on the processing, and WebGL won't like it. It will glitch and cause some problems for you. But most of the simple stuff looks great on WebGL too. Particle systems, just a lot of different ideas here for you to work with to add some environment to your game. Of course, basic particle systems here for explosions and what you want to do with your enemy. A couple Cinemachine here, so that's where you would blend between the two cameras. This is a much more advanced one, but it does show you later on how to simply just change the priority of your cameras, which works great. Also shows you how to do a custom blend for if you want to do a fast or slow fade in and out between cameras. Also some user interface enhancements. These are really good if you probably want to add a pause menu, pretty easy to add. Settings if you want to maybe change a few things in your game, like a common one would be like sound or volume effects. You can turn that on and off. High score is a really good one. That is introducing something called player prefs. This allows you to store data. When you play this in WebGL, it'll store that data. while you're playing that game and will continue. But if you close that website or you open it on another computer, it won't store your data. But if this is a PC build, it will store the high score, which is pretty cool, especially if this was on like an arcade machine. The high score would stay there for the duration of the application. Whether you open it or close it or turn off the machine, it will still be there. And of course, if you want to add some, this is the same video is up here for the health bar, but this kind of focuses on World Space UI with the health bar. When you do World Space UI, it allows you to add things like billboards and signs and speech bubbles for NPCs and all kinds of stuff. So lots of different enhancements here. There is much more, but I feel like after a pretty rigorous search and trying a lot of these out and making sure they were solid and really good quality tutorials, feel free to cruise through these and add some enhancements to your game. I highly recommend the sound and music. That's going to step things up, and I highly recommend scene transitions. Also, something that is a really simple one is on the particle systems here, some dust effect for your run and jump. It's just a really cool, a little tiny graphic effect that's going to make things quite it's going to step it up in such a simple way for your video game. So that's going to conclude this tutorial series. I hope you had fun making this game and can't wait to see all of your products, and please share. All right, have a good one. Mr. T out.